This landed at a ranch at Corona, New Mexico. The rancher turned it over to the Air Force. Rancher W.W. Brazil was the man who discovered the saucer.
What I thought was a star began coming in my direction at a very rapid rate of speed.
The unidentified object, which some sources thought might be a blimp, moved slowly down the Pacific coast from Santa Monica and disappeared south of Long Beach.
I saw a UFO, and it went down the river, turned right at the United Nations, turned left, and then down the river.
UFO classified. UFO classified. No more plausible deniability. Fact, fiction, or the truth. You decide. And now, the new voice of the high desert, the hostess of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes.
Well, happy Fantopia Friday, my friend. I see all of the familiar faces in chat tonight. I want to give a shout out to Amy, Bruce, David, Lib, Night Owl, Northern UFOs, Patty, Susan, Tamara, Tim, all of my favorite people who get in here. I want to just say from the bottom of my heart that I appreciate how respectful and intelligent all of you are. And I know that each of us is here every Friday night because we care about this subject, because we care about getting proper and good information, good research, and we truly want answers and deserve answers. And so I am very grateful to be on this journey with you and to share information and to hopefully move things forward in a positive direction. My guest this evening is someone who, she was actually one of the first people on my show when I made the move to KCOR. And that was great fun. I love running into her at conferences. She has the best laugh that I have heard in a long, long time. I enjoy her work, and I'm really looking forward to learning more about her work, because as I progress in my research, some of these things like MK Ultra, MyLabs, these things do come up, and I think that we should all be aware of them. Melinda Leslie is here tonight. She is a researcher, investigator, lecturer in the field of ufology. She's been doing this abduction research and experiences. She's been looking into this for 3 decades. She's researched covert ops military involvement, known as MyLabs, has interviewed countless abductees. Her research is featured in the book Camouflage Through Limited Disclosure, Deconstructing a Cover-Up of the Extraterrestrial Presence by Randy Kopang. Melinda has lectured for numerous organizations. As all of you know, she's been on Coast to Coast several times on different TV shows. Most recently, she made quite the big buzz when she spoke with Jim Semivan, who is an integral part. He's the co-founder and vice president of operations for To the Stars Academy. And we're going to hear a little bit more about her time speaking with him and some of the information that she gleaned from this. As most of you know, hopefully all of you know, things have been heating up as of late. In May last year, Robert Bigelow went on 60 Minutes and spoke with Laura Logan and talked about the fact that, yes, whatever we are researching is right under our noses. We also saw the formation of To the Stars Academy and their press conference, and then a huge bombshell of a New York Times article on Sunday, December 17th of last year, which was entitled Real UFOs, Pentagon Unit Tried to Know. Things have been heating up, and we've seen releases of different videos of encounters, and I really feel that now more than ever, those of us who research this have a genuine platform for us to get good information, good research out there. So this truly is an exciting time. Melinda, thank you for being here. I'm excited.
Well, Erica, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited too. I'm looking forward to this.
And I do have to say, I've been just reviewing your interviews, and I really do love your laugh. It makes me so happy. Oh. I love that. It's so fun.
You got to take all this with a I was going to say grain of salt, but it's with a sense of humor.
You
'Cause,
do,
you know,
you do.
this field gets pretty crazy. So,
Well, and I have to ask you, just right out of the gate. I mean, you and I have both talked about, and I think everybody in the field has talked about some of the dysfunctions in the field of ufology. And I mean,
oh yeah.
do you see that getting better anytime soon, or will it always be the same old, same old?
Well, it exists in any group or environment or, loose-knit organizational. If anyone's ever been in the corporate world or in politics or, it exists everywhere. So why should we be immune to it? People are people and they have personalities. And in this field, you have a lot of people vying for either the spotlight or vying for recognition or vying to have their research matter or, and in the upside, it gives kind of some competitiveness that's healthy that makes us all raise the bar and try to do a better job. And, you want to be the person who gets recognized. So you get asked to do the radio shows or you get asked to do the conferences or whatever, and yes, some of that's out of ego, but some of it's just out of, I'm doing all this work. I want it to be recognized, kind of thing. And a lot of people, their heart is in it. So, and like any organization, things are going to come up. I mean, for the same reason you constantly hear in the corporate world about, heaven forbid, things like sexism and racism and corporate politics and blah. We're not immune to it. Again, these are people. We're people who are passionate about a subject, but that doesn't mean that we're perfect people. And so, when these things happen in the field, it's just necessary for everyone to do a little house cleaning and to say, okay, well, we're all already, at least in the UFO subject specifically, we're already representing a subject that is controversial, that can be uncomfortable at times, that people's friends and families and coworkers have had to kind of shove down their throat to ridicule it, and the media ridicule, etc. And so there's a tendency for us to maybe have to raise a little higher bar, because if we want the subject matter and if we want our research to be taken credibly, we need to come across as credible people. And so I think we do need to kind of police the community in that regard. And also, my lecture coming up is we also need to be concerned about who we crawl into bed with, And of course that's literally, but I meant more figuratively. I meant, involvement with people in the intelligence community, and so it's again, we just have to keep ourselves to a higher standard because of trying to create acceptability over this subject matter. So I think more is required of us.
Right. And I have to say that just from, I've been in a public sense involved in this a fraction of the time that you have, but my thoughts just looking at some of the dysfunction at hand is that we haven't had really professional standards. And as a result, especially here in the United States, we've seen a lot of things put forth that aren't necessarily factual or healthy. And I believe that, some of the larger organizations probably could have better standards in that regard. So, I mean, it's one of those things. I just feel we could do so much as a community. We could not invite or go to Facebook pages where we have known trolls or skeptics or people who are debunkers. I mean, there's just so much that I think that each of us can do to make this field safer for witnesses and to make it a better place for research.
Well, and it's really hard to police the research, because where do you draw the line on? Because what seems like bullshit or way out there today might be the reality tomorrow, and something that we all embrace as the reality or good research will be disproven, or So those things are always in flux. But you're right, we can hold ourselves to a professional standard, kind of your generally accepted societal professional standards of business ethics and morality and proper behavior, and I think in that way and I'm happy to say the majority of the researchers and the majority of the top-notch researchers do. So, so it's just every once in a while, it's almost becoming, thank God, an aberration when those things happen or when they really stand out, But I think it's clear that we draw the line and we not accept inappropriate behavior that would be inappropriate in your corporate environment, inappropriate in your political organization, inappropriate in your church, So I think we just have to have those same standards. And because, again, we're representing a subject that is already tricky, I think we need to, as I just said, hold ourselves to even a higher standard.
Right, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And you mentioned, people in the intelligence agencies that have infiltrated the community. And I think it's been interesting to me because a lot of people don't really understand that takes place today. I think maybe they think that was something that took place in the 50s and 60s.
Oh,
but
I can tell you it's absolutely worse than ever. And it's not infiltrated. It's not like they're lurking in the shadows and they wear, coats with the collars turned up or, and they all look like MIBs or anything. No. These are guys, if anyone comes along and offers you a lot of money, you need to think twice. Let's put it that way, And I'm not saying all of it. I'm not painting with a wide, brush. I'm just saying you have to be cautious because there can be agendas and motives, and I'm asking everyone to just be cautious. I'm not, I'm giving this whole disclaimer. I'm giving these two presentations coming up for UFO Con in San Francisco, the Bay Area. And for those who want to look it up, it's CAUFOCon, CON.com. So that's the website, California UFO Con. And it's a conference that's going to be in San Francisco. It's right near the airport. And it starts a week from today. So if anyone can still make it, it'll be amazing. And if you're going, pat yourself on the back because it's going to be an amazing event. And I'm very fortunate and very honored that I'm going to be doing two presentations there. But one of those gets into the background of this current disclosure story actually goes back. Well, okay, the disclosure story itself goes back over 70 years in ufology, but the current story and the current organizations and people involved actually go back about 40 years. And again, I'm not saying guilt by association. I give this whole disclaimer I started to say in the beginning of my presentation. And one of the keys, I say many, many things in the clarification in the beginning. It's like 10 paragraphs that I'm going to actually read because I want to make sure I cover it and I cover it succinctly. Just yesterday, Carrie Cassidy of Project Camelot and her boyfriend were in town. And it was really nice. I got to sit with him for dinner, and she wanted to know all about this in my presentation. So I was bouncing some stuff off her and got some great feedback. But I read my whole intro to them, and they reacted extremely well. Which I said, Carrie, I know you're going to tell me if in other words, I need the critical thinking here, and they responded really well. So I feel very good about it. But one of the things I say in there is that I'm not painting everyone with with suggesting, I'm not even suggesting anyone involved has nefarious motives. I'm just saying there's problems with associations and contacts and whatnot. And people need to question it because the background of some of these individuals and organizations and their history going back over 40 years has not been about the truth. Far from it. It's been about control and manipulation of the field. So that makes me go, wait a second, everyone. Danger, Will Robinson.
Right.
Red flags are up. And again, so I give this whole disclaimer, but I just go about in this presentation of saying, here's the connections, here's how it goes back, and it very much involves my own personal story, because how I fell onto this 25, 26 years ago, I've been in ufology, like you said, for almost 30 years. 29 years. since I first had sightings at Area 51 and dived into the field, if you will, and then and realized I was having abductions, and everything else unfolded after that, and then all of a sudden I started two things were kind of happening simultaneously. One is my MyLabs research and realizing I was having those experiences, and at the same time realizing that there were these individuals constantly coming up in my story and in the stories of other MyLab cases that were these kind of intelligence insiders and et cetera. And it's bigger than that, but it's like, well, wait a second, what's going on here? And, there are these gray areas between what most of us would call the black world, deep, covert, the reverse engineering program, the secret space programs, the underground bases and military and ETs working together, and et cetera. There's that level of deep. And then there's the surface level, government that we're all aware of, and certainly, CIA and Pentagon, blah, blah, blah. Well, there's a middle ground. And there are those individuals that cover in that middle ground. And some of them have a foot in both worlds. A lot of them have a foot in both worlds. So the thing is, you just, it's about proceeding with caution. And the title of my lecture coming up is Ufology's Minders. Well, Minders was a name given by an abductee to intelligence operatives and people in her life that she said it's like they're minding the abductees. So I borrowed that term and say, well, this is the minding of ufology. And meaning ufology, the field and the subject, whether you're saying ufology as a subject matter or ufology as a field of research, they're minding both. And then a subtitle of the management and manipulation of disclosure for 40 years. But then I have a subtitle, well, two subtitles really, one, I guess, a second and third subtitle, which is an example of how the game is played. So that's like the point to doing my lectures. This is how this game is being played. And then the other one is a Shakespeare quote, which is, what is past is prologue. And I almost just called the lecture that, because I started to say that's what this really is about. What is past is prologue. In other words, understanding the 40-year recent history of this will help you understand exactly what's going on now and why. And so, but I realize not everyone's instantly familiar with the Shakespeare quote of what is past is prologue. So again, it's like an additional subtitle in the beginning of my lecture, because that's so true. What ufology often forgets its history.
Absolutely.
And it's unfortunate that we kind of have this, myopic view or whatever that goes back 2 years, maybe 5 years at the most. And new people come into the field and they don't even know that history. And other researchers aren't constantly bringing it up because it's old and it's history. And some of the older timer researchers who've been in it 40 years and 50 years think everybody knows that, and what you end up with is, no, not everybody knows. And sometimes we have to remember our history to see patterns and to see directions and understand where it's going and where it's been and why certain things are happening.
And absolutely, and I just have to say, I agree with you wholeheartedly. And last week I had Jan Aldrich on, who was, with NICAP in the 60s and Barry Greenwood and people like that, because like you say, the history of the subject is crucial to understanding the games that are at hand currently. You're absolutely right.
And when did someone like me who, 30 years ago was really new to the subject is now like an old timer in the field? It's like, when did that happen? Because you're right. And there are these guys that, I was just talking to another researcher that I was forgetting. His involvement went back into the 60s, and you go, wow, I just got into this in like 89, and then a few other, researchers I was talking to recently, realizing that at least what they did went back into like the early 70s or even the early 80s, but so, and right now there's a lot of really good researchers who are new to it, and there's a lot of people who've been with it a long time and everything in between. So And there's room for everybody, because anyone who's out there doing good research, good investigation, uncovering stuff, connecting the dots, like Cheryl Costa, who's doing that wonderful statistical work. And, so there's room for people to enter if they're diving in and they're helping. If you're a heavy lifter and you're helping, there's definitely room.
Well, we need fresh blood. We need new ideas.
Yeah.
We need new approaches. People that have an understanding of how to utilize social media to get the word out to.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. And it's just that we've become so stagnant in this field, I believe, and I think that we're seeing, and I know a lot of the older researchers that I've had on the show are very gravely concerned that their work, their 50 plus years of work, will not be remembered, and that people are just going off on these tangents without a good historical background. And I think they understand that, and they want to find younger people to pass the torch to. And I think it's critical. We have to do that.
Yeah. Yes. And yes, absolutely. And then luckily in some of the newer blood, we have individuals who have the social media thing down and the modern marketing skills, but some of those are diving in so fast, so hard, so direct that they're even kind of forgetting some of the past or not revisiting it. So I would ask that those younger individuals in their, shoot, man, it gets almost silly now when you think, oh, the younger people who are in their 20s, 30s, and early 40s,
I know,
versus everyone else over 60, I know, exactly. But but exactly. But but I and a few of them, yes, they're interested in that past information too, and they're keeping it alive. But I would say to them, make sure you understand that and those connections and the back case histories and the back stories and the back controversial things, and because those who forget their history are doomed to repeat it.
Yes.
And yet, as you said that, I realized too, some of the people that have been in it for a long time, it's like, is their work going to get forgotten? Yeah, because they could probably think back to maybe they were extremely active in doing stuff in the 80s, but were they remembering the work and talking about the work of the people that did it in the 50s?
Right.
Probably not,
And are they sharing today?
And maybe some were, but we do forget the past, and it's a huge learning curve to anyone new in this field. Don't assume you know everything by any means. It's a huge learning curve. It's definitely, it's a cliche, but it's definitely one of those subjects. The more you learn, the less you know. You just realize.
And I've got a question for Tim asked, and Tim will get to your question. I'm Erica Lukes here on UFO Classified with Melinda Leslie. We will be right back.
Stand by. This is UFO Classified with Erica Lukes. Erica Lukes. The phone lines are open now at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. More UFO Classified. UFO Classified with Erica Lukes on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. After this.
In the shadows, a voice cries out. Evidence that you're not alone.
You said my name. What is your name?
Proof that the living and the dead coexist. Or do they? Every Wednesday night, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, join writer, producer, and paranormal investigator Greg Bakken on Ghost Box Radio as he explores, interviews, and investigates evidence alongside some of the best in the paranormal community and beyond.
6 people killed.
Ghost Box Radio, Wednesday nights exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network, because the dead don't sleep. Ghost Box Radio.
Seconds and counting.
Broadcasting to you from another planet, beaming you a world of entertainment.
This is the world-famous KCOR. Now listen live online at KCORradio.com.
I like everything about this station.
When do I listen? Like 24 hours a day.
It's my favorite station. I just love the music.
It keeps me going at work.
The all-new KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Great. Make a note of it.
It's great.
The Fenton Files, where it's all connected.
You see, whoever controls technology controls the world.
Come explore a universe full of possibilities. Every Monday night at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern. The Fenton Files. Go where no other show has gone before.
You can deny all the things I've seen, all the things I've discovered, but not for much longer. Because too many others know what's happening out there.
Whether it be UFOs, aliens, conspiracies, or even consciousness, your host, Lorian Fenton, has a file for that. The Fenton Files. Your journey to the truth is but a file away. Live, Monday nights, 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The Fenton Files.
Incredibly intense.
Where truth is just waiting to be discovered.
Here's what happened on the last episode of Three Guys, No Ties.
That reminds me, I went to a Me Too convention. That was pretty cool.
You were just trying to pick up chicks.
I was one of the few guys there, one of the few straight guys.
Okay,
and
you.
And I thought it was about, that you're glad that Hillary didn't make presidency, and I was like, me too, but I guess I was at the wrong one. So they kind of kicked my ass out really quick.
That was a long way to go for that.
That was a great week.
Three Guys, No Ties. Wednesday nights, 7 to 9 Pacific on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
You're listening to
UFO Classified with Erica Lukes, where the truth isn't hidden beneath the black lines of a Sharpie.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
To be on with Erica, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Radio contact.
Share your thoughts on the show on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Or head over to the live chats at KCORradio.com.
The audience goes nuts.
And now, your host of UFO Classified.
Are you ready?
Erica Lukes. Welcome back and happy Fantopia Friday. I am here and very grateful to be on such an incredible network. KCOR has been an exceptional home for me, and I want to thank Tina Marie, my producer and the station owner, for having integrity, for doing a great job and getting shows out there like mine, and I really appreciate that. I honor and respect her professionalism. We don't have a lot of that, unfortunately, in some of the things, some of the networks out there, and so I appreciate that. I want to thank, again, everybody in chat. Every day I get in here, every Friday I see more and more people tuning in and taking an interest. I want to, as always, give a big shout out to Northern UFOs, who helps me get this information onto YouTube so we can get more listeners out there and exposed, hopefully, to really good, credible information. This is the most important topic in the world to me, to my guest, Melinda Leslie, to all of you who are listening. It is critical that we understand what is going on, where we can find good research, and understand that we can be manipulated. This field has been manipulated for decades. We need to be aware of some of these things. And Melinda and I were speaking about that on the last break or on the last segment. But Melinda, welcome back. And I wish that I could hear your speech, because that sounds exceptional.
Well, as I was saying over the break to you, is, of course, it's going to be dynamic to be there in person and hear all the speakers. I mean, it's, I'm blessed to be among some really great speakers. And the conference is put on by Lorian Fenton, who actually has a show on the same network, as you guys know. And and she does a remarkable job and really kind of pushes the envelope, tries to get some of the newest and best research going on. And this year is no exception. It's just a really incredible lineup, and I'm honored to be a part of it. You have myself, and then right after me speaking, Grant Cameron, I'm doing the background of this current story, and he's doing actually what's going on up to date, covering like the last 3 years. So he's going to cover like the last 3 years in depth of everything that's gone on and how it's come about and what they're doing, what their plans are, et cetera, and all sorts of new stuff the new research that he's shared conference, and then you have so we're doing that both on the Friday night, the beginning of the conference. And then you have a variety of speakers on a lot of different subjects, some people who are sharing really dynamic personal experiences that have never been shared, some people doing some really good historical research, some people with some amazing sighting and abduction reports, and, so it's all really great. And then closing up the conference at the end, you have Danny Sheehan, lawyer Daniel Sheehan, followed by Stephen Bassett, really taking into the bigger picture. Danny, I know, is going to get all into the politics behind exactly what's going on right now and why it is. And then I know Steve's going to cap it off with it's, again, kind of almost to history, but also going forward with the disclosure and everything. So, it's as opposed to seeing it as four people talking about the same thing, we each have a different part of that story. That where else can you go hear all four parts and get the whole picture? Like no one else. You'd have to hear all four of these. Now, I will say this, and then, of course, like I said, the other. I'm also doing a presentation on how does someone know if they've had alien abduction? What are the common traits of an alien abductee? What are the common experiences? And everyone can go, well, that's been done. But I was inspired by research, by lectures that the late Bud Hawkins would do, like at Whole Life Expos 30 years ago, and he would do a kind of a lecture that really helped someone. If you think you might be having experiences, or you're wondering if your experiences fit the normal patterns, or if certain traits that you have fits the common traits for an abductee, or what you should do if you're gathering your own evidence, and what to do about it. So I'm giving that talk, and I'm so thrilled because here I'm giving two lectures I've never ever given before. To talk about the history of the working group stuff. 20 years ago for Bob Brown at International UFO Congress, Bob and the board at International, because he's have a whole board of directors behind it. 20 years ago, Randy Kopeng, my research associate, and I did a joint lecture on the fact we'd come across this working group and their involvement, and we gave that lecture back then. I've never lectured about it since.
And so, can you?
And it's kind of funny to reinvent this lecture I did 20 years ago. But our research didn't stop. That was the beginning. We've been researching it at that point, we'd been researching it for like 4 or 5 years, and then we give that lecture. And it was because I was very good friends with Bob Brown and had kept him abreast of it. And some of the other board members, and they were like, you guys, you got to come do this, So it was really cool, and we were honored to be asked. And so we gave this in-depth presentation about how we came across it and the connections and, just kind of telling the whole story. Well, that was the beginning. We've continued to investigate it all along. And what has kept its main interest for me is all along, it completely dovetailed with my MyLab research. It was directly connected. The individuals were connected, some of the organizations, that the abductees had constant involvement with these guys. And this is a part of the news story going on with the current To the Stars, ATIP, the whole thing, Elizondo, whatever. Is that there's this subgroup, part of it, doing abduction research, doing the gathering of DNA and blood work from abductees, testing abductees for psi abilities, and doing brain scans for brainwave patterns and monitoring and that kind of thing.
Right, and that would be Dr. Gary Nolan and I'm assuming Hal Puthoff.
Gary Nolan and Kit Green and Hal and et cetera. So this is going on currently, and realizing that there are all these kind of sub stories interplaying together. And even when I met and had lunch with Jim Semivan, he said, well, it's part of a bigger group that's really like To the Stars Academy is just the public face of a much bigger group of 40 or 50 some odd guys. He gave me a number. I just don't remember the exact number that he said, but it was clearly a much larger organization that they're the public face of. And so they're very interested and involved with abductees and have been all along. And so that's one thing. I mean, no one who knows that but me and Randy, So it's one thing I'm going to be pointing out in the lecture, and that's where my own story all along dovetailed with it, because as I say, abductees have interfaced with these guys. I have extensively over all the years, or not extensively, but on and off over the years. I've had my own personal involvement with them, so I'm one of those stories, And so that's what kept me following it. And so to me, what's currently going on is suddenly no mystery. And I have information and research that suggests what they're up to and where they're going with it. And, and thus also some concerns. Now, again, I'm not saying, and that's why I say in the beginning, I'm not saying they all have nefarious motives whatsoever, but there are some areas of caution. And they have been involved in ufology for like 40 years and manipulating in a variety of ways. And some of those are well-known stories. I mean, that's one thing I have a timeline in my talk that's going to go over the well-known stories that have surfaced over the years, their involvement as the aviary, their involvement with the Rockefeller Initiative, their involvement with NIDS, of course, with Bigelow, and then ISSO, it goes back to that. So there's all these connections with kind of a running theme, and I'm kind of just pointing out the obvious. And I'll say too, looking online, I'm certainly not the only person who's come across all this. Maybe the one really unique take is, first off, the depth of it that Randy and I've done, but also the strong connection to abduction research all along, going back to an original meeting in 1985 where they stated that one of their primary goals was an interest in abductees. It's actually in their meeting agenda, minutes and notes from that meeting, so anyway, so that's what I'm going to tie all together, and I'm so thrilled to be doing it. I mean, anyone who thinks, oh, well, I heard her on Erica, therefore I don't need to go hear it. Well, guess again, because I'm going to get into detail, things you've never heard.
Well, absolutely. And I mean, and I'll ask you questions that are going to be different, from the topics that you're discussing, but things that I feel can really inspire people to go hear your lecture and to pay for it, which I know I will, because I want to hear all the details. But I want to ask you. That
reminds me one little quick point I had forgotten to make, which was, if you can go there, great. Her space she's doing it is not that big. I think she maxes at like 300 people or less. So once she fills up, so if you want to go, sign up now. Because definitely sign up now, and go by all means. But if you really can't, everything will be loaded up online, like a pay-per-view, where you can either pay for a segment or pay for the whole thing and watch all of them at one price.
Right. And I'm sure she'll talk about that on the show.
Pay for viewing per lecture
too.
Yeah.
I'll
So it will be there. So if you really can't make it, you can still hear these presentations. And not just me. I mean, look at the lineup, everyone. Go on the website. When you see all the speakers, I mean, she's going to have Enrique Villanueva there talking about what's going on. There's this whole South American thing going on in the Spanish-speaking cultures called these, I forget what they're calling, the Zendras, the portals,
right.
And how they're having open contact
Absolutely.
And
And
it's
Grant
just
Cameron talks a lot
fascinating.
about that. It is
Yeah.
fascinating.
Oh, it's a fascinating story. I
It
heard
is
some of these guys at Star Works last year for Paola Harris, and they were just
they're amazing.
absolutely fascinating. Well, Enrique's going to be giving the up-to-date, absolute, up-to-the-minute information on that at the conference. It's must hear. You know.
Absolutely. I'm excited, and I'll post links to all of that because that is it's something that I study as well. And I really want to get back to the people that have been involved in intelligence for so long and kind of it swaying the field. I mean, you and I have both, through our research, have discovered that there are definite factions with specific agendas. And, I mean, I think for me, one of the concerns I had when I first heard the press conference of when Tom DeLonge and other people got on stage, I heard the word threat a lot.
Oh yeah.
And to me, that was that raised some concern with me, and I know it did with many other people in the field or people that were paying attention. So what do you know about some of the different factions and perhaps their agendas through your work?
Yeah, my understanding is, and I'm not alone. In fact, I would think pretty much the majority of the people in the field feel this, that it is being spun or sold that way, with the possibility of a threat. I mean, 2 days ago, I think it was, that Elizondo was interviewed again by Chris Tucker on Fox Television. Did you see that?
I did. I've been watching everything that comes out.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And so, and Chris Tucker, that's his name, right? I think I had that right. And he kept saying,
Carlson Tucker.
Well,
Isn't it Tucker Carlson?
Carlson Tucker. Thank you. Tucker.
We'll get it right.
I knew I had it wrong. I was like, I'm not saying this right, am I? Sorry, everyone. I don't watch a lot of Fox. I admit. Okay. Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson kept saying, well, this is a threat. This is a threat. Why aren't we paying attention? This is something to be concerned of. This is a possible threat. And I'm like, man, was he following the storyline or what? I was like, oh, brother. But I think, and then of course, probably no one listening missed the comments by President Trump about the Space Force, and having a militarization of space, and it's like, oh God, So, but you go back to at least I can go back to when I talked to Jim Semivan and him saying that they were hoping to they had a very specific agenda to create a slow media awareness to build over a period of time specifically. And that he expressed, now whether he's speaking more on his own or for the group, but that he said eventually to force enough public awareness, enough media attention that it falls in the lap of Congress. And that Congress has to do a thorough investigation into the fact that this information's all been suppressed. And so that's, he said, he was speaking on behalf of To the Stars Academy, that's actually what they want to do. And so if they're going to build this media attention to force, Congress to pay attention, to do an investigation, look into it, there is a faction of this whole bigger group that is clearly wanting to create the new space race, to do a weaponization of space, to build the toys, and for the major aerospace and engineering companies to make a lot of money, and to also say we have to beat Russia and China at this game. And so you hear that in the language. You hear that in what Elizondo's saying. So you go, okay, there's this, we got to beat Russia and China. We got to develop it before they do. So it's like the new Cold War to outbeat Russia and China on the development. But at the same time, we have to be worried about this possible threat of ETs so that we're prepared if, in fact, they are a threat. And out of this will come these contracts for the development of all sorts of weaponization technology, aircraft, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's a double-edged sword, because ufology and many ufologists want disclosure so bad they can taste it, but we're at risk if we totally look the other way about it being spun that way, because of it creating fear amongst the public and a distrust of information on the subject. I mean, you guys, this could fall back on ufology in a really dangerous way if people don't want to hear what ufologists have to say about it, because they're being told officially to be afraid. And it could really, so I have some deep concerns there. I think we need to really make sure that we have a voice in this conversation, and we continue to have a voice going forward, and a voice of reason, and a voice based on research and facts, and because we don't want to create a society fearful of the subject matter. That's not the truth. That's not the truth. And shame on these guys for wanting to spin it that way. What? So they can start the new space race? So they can have toys and weaponization of space and Trump's Space Force or whatever? I'm like, what? So because for many of us, and I know you and I feel this way, and probably most everyone listening in ufology, we want it to be about the truth. What are the ETs really up to? What's really going on? And what the evidence really shows, and have it be based on the evidence and not based upon selling it to accomplish some financial goals, that are selling something other than what it is. It's just, anyway, so there's in a nutshell what my concern is.
Absolutely. And those are really critical concerns. And I have to say, as most of my listeners know, I traveled to Hessdalen, Norway about 4 months ago, and I was privileged enough to work alongside Erling Strand, who has led, in my opinion, the most important research projects in the world, Project Hessdalen, for 35 years, where he's obtained funding from the government and many different countries. It works with the best scientists in the world, and there is none of that game playing and manipulation of data. And I don't understand why this is so exclusive to the United States of America.
Well, because I think it has this long history behind it. So, it gets back to how, I don't, maybe I'm being too simplistic, but I think it gets back to the way our government functions and the way we use militarization for economic purposes. And every war is sold based on fear, but it's always an economic reason, and it's always often been about money, and if not every time, really, and so we have a track record. So that same body of thinking with that history behind it is applying their thinking to this. So you have a very corporate, a very militaristic, a very, way of thinking about these things. And, but some of that may be separate from the absolute evidence and truth of what we're actually dealing with.
Right.
And certainly anyone who is a contactee, abductee, frequent sighting experience, someone who's a witness of frequent sightings, knows that there's a consciousness interaction. And that has to be in the conversation and addressed. The hybridization program has to be in the conversation and addressed. What happens if this is all spun as a threat, what does that make hybrids? And the hybrids that may be living amongst us. That's a problem. And
well,
so
and yes, absolutely. And I agree because this is very disempowering. And whatever this is has been around us for a very, very long time. And all of these things are critical questions, and they're questions that I would love to have the opportunity to ask Tom DeLonge. And I've invited Dr. Gary Nolan on the show. He has not come on yet. People like that, because I think these are critical questions. I understand that there's research that, apparently that some people think that we aren't ready to understand, or we the people couldn't handle the truth. I don't know about that.
But it's critical that we understand it.
It is.
Because
we should have the power.
Otherwise, we're at great risk of this information being used in the wrong way to produce, an economic control or militarization control. And so, so again, I think there's just these bigger picture concerns that need to be brought to the table. And I think it's ufology's job to hold these guys' feet to the fire and to make sure that if they present evidence, we've already had this come up, if they're presenting something as evidence, that it be real evidence and not perpetrating some hoax based upon fake stuff, because there's already been some problems with what's been presented. And so, and everyone is being cautious about that, but also to realize that they have this bigger game, this bigger picture. And again, it's like, we have to be careful that we don't want disclosure so bad that we're willing to look the other way on everything else that might be coming with it.
Absolutely. And I hear that music, and I have to cut you off right there, and I'm sorry about that. We'll get back to that. I'm Erica Lukes here on UFO Classified. Thanks for tuning in. I am here with Melinda Leslie, and the best is yet to come. We will catch you on the other side of the break.
Listen very carefully.
This is Houston. Say again, please. Houston, we've had a problem.
This is UFO Classified, live every Friday night, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The truth is out there, just waiting to be discovered.
And now, if you will, accompany me on a journey to the future.
For more information on the host of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes, upcoming guests, as well as links to the past shows,
visit her website at ufoclassified.com.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a shack just south of Area 51.
Wait, that doesn't exist.
This is the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Now for the news.
Now, broadcasting in digital HD radio.
The disc landed at a ranch at Corona, New Mexico. The rancher turned it over to the Air Force. Rancher W.W. Brazil was the man who discovered the saucer.
What I thought was a star began coming in my direction at a very rapid rate of speed.
The unidentified object, which some sources thought might be a blimp, moved slowly down the Pacific coast from Santa Monica and disappeared south of Long Beach.
I saw a UFO, and it went down the river, turned right at the United Nations, turned left, and then down the river.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
No more plausible deniability. Fact, fiction, or the truth. You decide. And now, the new voice of the high desert, the hostess of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes.
Welcome back, and thank you for tuning into UFO Classified. I am here with Melinda Leslie, who has been researching things for 3 decades and has made great contributions to the field. I'm so excited. She was one of the first people on my show when I was starting out here at KCOR. So I'm very excited to have her back, and you can check her out next weekend. And please go see this if you are in the area. Melinda, tell us a little bit more about where people can get tickets for your conference.
Well, really the only way is just to go to the website for CaliforniaUFOCon.com. So it's actually just CAUFOCON.com, and it's at the Holiday Inn right near the airport in San Francisco. So it's real easy to fly in, catch a shuttle right over to it. Super easy. I mean, I did it last year, and so. And I highly recommend being there. It's an amazing mix of people. I keep hearing from like major researchers that are going to be there, that aren't even speaking. As is often with these really good UFO conferences, the audiences is filled with as many interesting people that, and people that would also be amazing speakers, even though they're not speaking that time, And so that's the case. And and Lorianne has this way of getting event producers who produce other events who come to hers because she'll take a risk, and she'll have a new speaker or someone with an amazing experience who's either never lectured before or only lectured in some very small audiences, and give them the bigger audience. And so other event producers come and hear these people, and then these people make it out there on the circuit. Last year, just two case examples that come immediately to mind is Jason Quitt and John D'Souza, who lectured for the first time at Lorianne's conference last year, and now they're everywhere, because producers were there and heard them and picked them up, and it's wonderful. It's wonderful.
That is so awesome. I'm excited. Now I'll post links about all of this, and I want to get back to because there's so many questions for you.
And as
ahead.
I started to say there about the conference too, so if you can't make it at all, it will be posted online. Each lecture will go up, I'm sure, within 48 hours of the lectures, maybe even sooner. There's a lot of factors that that can affect that, but it's not being live streamed, but they're going to go up right away. So what you can do is go to the website and either pay to watch the ones you want to see, or pay one price and see pretty much everything. I recommend just pay the one price. It's probably much cheaper to do that, and it'll be affordable. And then you can watch them on your computer at home in your own time.
And I will absolutely post links. I'm so excited to see it. I know you're going to kick some butt. And I want to say, because I've got so many questions for you, and we've got questions in chat, but I have to ask you more about some of these people that have been in the game for a long time, and the different factions. I mean, can you give us some names? I mean, could you touch on Dr. Ron Pandolfi?
Well, interestingly enough, in my stuff, he doesn't come up that much. I mean, his name is there. Just as an example. Okay, you asked about Ron, so I'll go here. I have this really cool thing I spent a lot of time working on, which is this chart that I have the groups and affiliations, and I call it the disclosure playing field across the top. And down the left, what I call the players. So the players in the disclosure playing field. And it's not everyone. What I did is I created these columns. And for instance, it has the working group, and it has To the Stars, and it has the ATIP program at the Pentagon and the Rockefeller Initiative. It has NIDS, Aviary, ISSO. It has whether they're intelligence community. And then as an example, I have this section that has whether they're involved with the Bigelow Aerospace subsidiary company called Bigelow, it's BASS, BAASS, Bigelow Aerospace Advanced Science Studies. And then whether they were specifically like aerospace related, Lockheed related, if they've had a specific involvement in advanced technology development, and mostly like breakthrough physics, propulsion, like I said, new physics, that kind of stuff. If they have an involvement in psi and paranormal or parapsychological, research kind of, if they've had an involvement in abduction research, or if they've been a part of an organization with a stated interest in abduction research, or who has at one time funded or been involved with abduction research. And then if they have a background or involvement with certain medical sciences, and it kind of boiled down to things that would be related to neuroscience research or DNA research. And so just as an example, Pandolfi checks off on 8 of those boxes. So, as being involved in 8 of those things, but I have people on this list that check off to 12 and 13 of those boxes. So, sorry, Ron, if you're listening, you're only like 10 or 12 people down the list. I thought, I'm laughing, but these guys can go, I should be at the top. Anyways, but I mean, you guys, you got to make a joke of all this because it becomes absurd. Not that it's all laughable. I say in my disclosure statement in the beginning, or what I'm trying to say, my clarification disclaimer statement in the beginning is that it's a game. Yes, it's a serious game, but it is a game, and everyone needs to see it as the game that it is and understand what the objectives are in their game, and then you can kind of detach from it, but you can also watch for the spin and be leery of all those things we just discussed before the break about where this could be going and the negative spin, which for the building up the new space race and the technological race that they're trying to do, they're having to kind of justify that, and that's through that idea of threat, unfortunately, but again, if they make the public scared of this, that, you guys, as ufologists, that could be really bad for us. Everybody needs to not be all on board and happy about that. That's a problem, You don't want everyone really fearful of this subject matter. They're not going to hear what you say, and they're certainly not going to hear about what might be the most important aspects of it, like the consciousness, like the hybridization program, like where science and consciousness can meet, And if it ends up sidestepping that, how do we regain that ground, So it's like, you guys, it's that we just need to pay attention to all this, and everyone needs to take a big step back and really breathe and think, and, Okay, so going back to your question about Pandolfi, though, like I said, in those various things I listed, he checks off on 8 of those things. Now, I'm also saying that I don't know that all my information on this is absolutely verbatim. I mean, I tried to verify everything and back it up. And if anything, I removed some X's when I wasn't sure. So when people are on this list and they mark up on these different things, I had to come across multiple things in their bios and their backgrounds and the companies they've been involved with to really feel like, okay, I can put that X in that column, And but it ends up painting this interesting picture because there's this whole group that are specifically involved in the ET technology part of it. There's this whole group specifically involved, and I called it on this chart ET mind because there really wasn't enough space at the top to write consciousness, but the consciousness part, the paranormal part, the abduction research part, the neuroscience and the DNA part, which is absolutely related to that. And then there's this whole group that I call old disclosure, like the Rockefeller Initiative and NIDS and Aviary and ISSO, and then the new group, which is the To the Stars ATIP stuff. But there's all these crossovers of people who have been in each part. And then I created this other little chart that I can't wait to show, which gets into, Eric, are you there?
I'm here. Uh-oh. Yep, I'm here.
Oh, okay, it's a different call. I wanted to make sure I didn't lose connection with you because all of a sudden, if you hear that, I apologize. Someone's trying to call me. I'm just going to ignore them.
No, we can't hear
Maybe I can hang up on them. As a matter of fact, there we go. I'm hanging up on them. Sorry about that, everyone. I had a call coming in, and I wanted to make sure I hadn't lost contact with you, Erica, and that you were trying to reach me. If I was talking to thin air, I'd be really bummed, man.
Well,
It could happen, but
it could happen.
You'd come back, say, repeat everything you just said, and I'd go, I have no idea what I just said. Okay, so let's hope that doesn't happen. Okay, so What was I just saying when I got interrupted there?
Oh my gosh, you were talking about Bigelow. You were talking about the different,
yeah.
All of
yeah. Oh, and then I have this timeline. I did this other chart because someone looking at my other chart, and a friend of mine I shared it with said, "Oh, we should have a timeline." And I went, "No, too much work, blah blah blah." But I already had a written out timeline I was going over, and I said, "Well, what if I took the dates and the years of that written out timeline and did a little visual chart to go with it?" And what wrong part? Here we go. I'm going up to it. There it is. I'm moving on it in my screen here so I can see it. And for instance, I listed things like the Avery involvement in the working group and Bob Bigelow's background, the Rockefeller Initiative, NIDS, ATIP, blah, blah, blah. And then I said, well, okay, when did they really start? And when did they really end? And if anything, what became interesting is a lot of them didn't really have an end, a definitive end. I'm like, well, there may be an end right about here, or they're still going on, And what you see is kind of one group begets another group, which begets another group, and they all kind of outflow out of each other, which is, real interesting to see visually that you go, wait a second, that turned into that, which turned into that, which turned into that. And you realize there's this interconnectedness of these stories. And that's the whole point to my lecture. I mean, that's the point right there. And, is this back history and this interconnectedness and how this all forms out of this background, and what the agenda has been in the past, suggesting what the agenda is now,
And that's going to be critical. And I think to me, this is where I've been spending my time researching, just trying to put the pieces together with all of these different people involved in this and their backgrounds and what the agenda and motivation is. I mean, it's really, it's critical, as you know. And with regard to Bigelow and some of the things, obviously we know that he paid a substantial amount of money to collect data from MUFON. And and he also has spent a lot of time and money here in Utah investigating things. What have you found out with regard to Bigelow and his connection with all of this?
First off, I'm going to go into great detail in the lecture. Well, not great, but an overview kind of detail about some of the different things. What I feel too about Robert Bigelow specifically is this is a guy who, with his family, had a series of sightings when he was young. It developed an extreme interest in the subject and other paranormal subjects too. He was pursuing those on and off in his life, from everything I can tell, but at some point he got deeply involved with all these other guys, if you will, starting in about 1990, and then really developing into, from 90 to 95, because as of 95, that was the birth of NIDS, the National Institute of Discovery Science. And so even before that, he had an interest in was doing certain things, and he actually got involved himself with the Rockefeller Initiative stuff in 93, 94. But before that, he was doing some interesting things. How many people out there realize he had at one point had bought a corporation for Bob Lazar and got Bob Lazar started up in a corporation? I mean, that was something I didn't know until I was doing more of this research. That he funded Art Bell when Art Bell was first going on the air. He funded some of Linda Moulton Howe's cattle mutilation research, and so you go back, and there's this constant involvement in the field. Now, some of that is not necessarily a problem. He was funding these people doing their research because he had an interest. That's not necessarily anything wrong, okay, at all. But it shows that he had an involvement and he was willing to put his money towards it. And then that grew. So it started with those other things and it's just kind of snowballed, Now, there were along the way some problems in difficult areas. One thing that comes up, for instance, is the what they call the Carpenter affair of NIDS. and Bigelow. So at one point, it's like those are inseparable, and that they bought the abduction files of John Carpenter, and it kind of put him out of commission because when the abductees found out, they got very upset, and so a few other things like that have been problems along the way, but and again, that's an issue, and that was probably handled incorrectly, but I'm not sure that it really spoke to outright nefarious motives of any kind, but there's an overall behind-the-scenes manipulation, and his name comes up in a lot of it, or some of it, repeatedly, though, over time, and increasingly so, to the point where now, it's what's going on now, and how he got his senator buddies to fund and create ATIP for the Pentagon, so you go into, wait a second, now we're talking, this is a bigger game, this has become a bigger, more serious game. Absolutely. And that's one thing, again, in my lecture, I'm going to go into exactly kind of how that unfolded and how that happened, or at least what I've come across. And like I said, I'm not the only one. The difference is, first off, I was asked to do this presentation by Lorian and Grant. So, why am I doing this? Well, I was asked, okay, first. And secondly, I have a personal involvement in my MyLab's research and my own MyLab experiences where I've interacted with some of this all along the way.
Right.
Including, this is really mind-blowing for me. This is really mind-blowing. I found out I was having alien abduction after having a bunch of sightings out at Area 51 in 1989. So 89 was like the kickoff for my involvement in ufology. A bunch of sightings causing me to remember some abduction experiences as a childhood, teenage, young adult, and then realizing I was having current experiences, which, yes, it's likely I was having that before I knew it in 89, but 89 is when I came to terms with it and realized it for what it was, okay? Now, so prior to 89, I did not know. Prior to the September of 89, I had no idea as an abductee. And then in 93, I got involved in realizing I was having the MyLab scenario, the covert human and military involvement in my abduction experiences, and realizing I'd actually had harassment and surveillance building up since about 89 to 93. But then I had a full-blown military abduction in August of 93, and that was really what kicked that off for me. Well, years later, I ran into an old roommate who I'd been a roommate with in 1990. And for a while, she had a 14-year-old daughter that came and lived with us for about 3 months. And then the daughter moved out. Well, I was always told that the daughter moved out because she missed her dad and her old schoolmates. And that's what I always thought the story was. But then all of a sudden, in the late 90s, I reconnect with her. I met up with her in a bookstore, happened to run into her. I hadn't seen her in at least five or 6 years, So we get together, and I think we had a meal, and then I went over to her apartment, or we planned on another day to get together anyway. So we reconnected. And she asked me about my abduction stuff because she was with me in 89 when I was finding out all that was happening. So she actually witnessed one of my alien abductions. I probably told you this before. I don't remember, but just there was.
Yes, you did. You did on the first show.
Yeah,
yep.
Yeah. I wonder if I did. So, and I could go over that, but rather than take the time now. But anyway, so I witnessed, and she witnessed my being gone during a period of missing time. She saw an alien in the hallway, so she was directly involved. And so she asked me about that, and I ended up, because this was well after 93. This was like probably 97 when I ran into her. And so I went into my MyLab research stuff, and she goes, "Oh my God, I'm so glad you know that now." And I go, "What? What do you mean you're so glad I know that now?" And she said, "Well, back when her daughter lived with us, and I'll just I'll say fictitious name just to make this easy, Amy. So I'll say back when Amy lived with us." She said, "Why do you think Amy moved out?" And I said, "Well, she missed her dad and and this whole thing." And she said, "Well, no, not really." And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" She goes, Amy moved out again because she was so freaked out by what was happening to you. Well, they were witnessing, not only had her mom already witnessed one of my alien abductions, but apparently they were witnessing other things. And then what really was the icing on the cake, and she said it happened on more than one occasion. They were awoken during the night or kept awake during the night by what sounded like military men shouting orders at me in my bedroom. And I was crying and pleading, no, I don't want to go. You can't make me, stuff like this. And they said, Melinda, it was clearly a military presence in the house with you. And I had no idea prior to 93 that any of that had happened. And I was like, whoa. Well, now in my research of all this, I am realizing my background with some of the players in this, specifically one of them, goes back to the early 80s. And the year I met him is the same year that these guys formally met.
And so would he be considered a handler?
At a distance, not really. That's where the term minder is better, because it's just keeping tabs on you, as opposed to a handler you have more direct involved with, and you're making choices based upon their input, and that kind of thing.
And I want to clarify those two terms when we get back. And I know that I think. Oh, do we have to break again? We are coming up to a break. Really, 1 minute
I'll
to
just
break.
say this much, to end with this one quick thing, if I can, which is realizing that I now have good reason to believe that these guys, or at least he, may have thought or either knew I wasn't, because I didn't find out I was an alien abductee till 89, that these guys knew I was an abductee before I did. And that I was already on their radar.
And I've got to, I'm so sorry. We're going to take a quick break.
Yeah.
I'm here, Erica Lutz.
Cliffhanger.
I know, woohoo. Erica Lutz and Melinda Leslie, you know that the best is yet to come, because we've got so many questions. I will get to them. We will be right back.
Stand by.
This is UFO Classified with Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
The phone lines are open now at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. More UFO Classified.
UFO Classified
with Erica Lukes on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. After this.
Hello, KCOR radio listeners. Lori and Fenton here from the Fenton Files. Let me ask you, now that disclosure's happened, what does it mean for ufology? Will it change anything? To get the current disclosure answers and learn of alien encounters, the inside of UFOs, the Anunnaki agenda, California UFO hotspots, and so much more, join me at UFOCon 2018 in South San Francisco, California, March 23rd through 25th. Visit caufocon.com, that's caufocon.com, and prepare for the truth.
Here's what happened on the last episode of Three Guys, No Ties.
That reminds me, I went to a Me Too convention. That was pretty cool.
You were just trying to pick up chicks.
I was one of the few guys there, one of the few straight guys.
Okay,
and
you.
And I thought it was about, that you're glad that Hillary didn't make presidency. And I was like, me too, but I guess I was at the wrong one. So they kind of kicked my ass out really quick.
That was a long way to go for that.
That was a great week.
Three Guys, No Ties. Wednesday nights, 7 to 9 Pacific on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
There is a world outside that which we live in. A realm where fact and fiction collide. The Paradigm Matrix.
The Paradigm Matrix.
Hosted by Willie Miranda. Every Friday night at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern.
The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us, even now in this very room.
The 1 hour show that will surely leave you hanging on the edge of the rabbit hole.
The Paradigm Matrix
explores a universe of topics from UFOs, cryptozoology, conspiracies, as well as all things paranormal.
Enter a world of the twisted and deformed.
Friday night, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. The Paradigm Matrix. Exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network, where fact and fiction collide.
This is the world-famous KCOR.
That's the only station I listen to.
Friday night, 9 p.m. Pacific. Jump onto the Celestial Highway and travel at the speed of light. Into hyperspace. Hyperspace. Hosted by Solaris Blue Raven. She navigates you through the cosmic tides of mysticism into the world of covert technology, UFOs, mystical sciences, and the world of unforeseen forces.
You get to really sort of enjoy a bizarre ride.
Listen live, Friday night, 9 p.m. Pacific, for Hyperspace, the one show that blows the whistle off our government black ops projects. Hyperspace, hosted by Solaris Blue Raven. Exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Want to take a ride?
You're listening to
UFO Classified with Erica Lukes, where the truth isn't hidden beneath the black lines of a Sharpie.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
To be on with Erica, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Radio contact.
Share your thoughts on the show on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Or head over to the live chats at KCORradio.com.
The audience goes nuts.
And now, your host of UFO Classified.
Are you ready?
Erica Lukes.
Welcome back and happy Fantopia Friday. I'm Erica Lukes. Make sure you stick around for Willie Miranda, who will be up next, and then Tina Marie, Solaris Blue Raven. We have a great night on KCOR, so grab a pitcher of margaritas and get in your flannel pajamas and dig in for a wonderful evening. I am here with Melinda Leslie, who has been researching the subject of MyLab's abductions, many different things, for 30 years. She is incredible, and she also does tours in Sedona, Arizona, which I've got to get down there and do a tour with Melinda. I know we keep talking about that, but you can find her. You can go to SedonaWagonStore.com, right, to book tours?
No.
Okay.
No, yeah, UFOsightingtours.com.
Okay.
So UFOsightingtours.com, and that will give you all the information about my my UFO sighting tours.
And
I
good.
just completed. Night before last was tour number 870. So I've completed 870 tours, and you guys, no joke, only once did my clients feel that they didn't have a sighting. The other 869 tours, my clients always thought they had sightings.
How fun.
And we have amazing sightings.
My
gosh.
My gosh. And that could be a whole show in and of itself. But I mean, we've been talking about.
Oh, yeah. The stuff that we've seen, sometimes it's boring to hear about a bunch of sightings, but we've had some really dramatic stuff happen. That's just, we've seen fully structured craft, like cars hovering above us on 22 of the tours, It's just phenomenal stuff.
I'm going to get down there and visit you, and we'll have a lot of fun.
I'd love to take you.
I know.
Absolutely.
I would love it.
I want to take everybody. I love providing the experience, and if people had, if you got your skeptical friends, your skeptical family members, bring them along. I mean, I have changed so many people's paradigms and convinced so many skeptics. I mean, I tell people those are my favorite people to bring.
So
when they see it, they go, "Oh my God!"
So was Jim Semivan? So did he come down there with his wife and do a tour?
No, not they. They say they're if he's still talking to me. I mean, I joke, but if he's still talking to me, which I believe he is, I'm getting good feedback from people who know him, so I'm not hearing anything negative. And but he expressed that they want to come back and do my tour, and he actually expressed he wants to bring Tom, and I said absolutely. They said, exclusive, private, everybody has to meet with your approval before going, and but I said, absolutely, I'd love to have them bring Tom and take them together. Sure, absolutely. No problem.
So with and I've got some questions I want to ask from chat, but with all of your work with the different factions or the different motivations and agendas that obviously have been at play for at least 40 years, like you were mentioning, I mean, is there an aspect to, and I keep hearing George Knapp and Senator Harry Reid in some of the interviews allude to this ultra-Christian, ultra-conservative faction that stopped funding for research. Do you know anything about that, or perhaps can you elaborate on like the demonic agenda? Because there does appear to be a faction that is.
Well, these guys could conveniently. Oh God, that's okay. I know nothing about what you're talking about right now. I could see how to sell a certain branch of the public on the threat possibility for for their desire to build up the new space race and technological development and the new Cold War and et cetera, that they could play up that part because a whole large group of the public will get on board if they play that up, so that they might affiliate themselves with groups with that point of view. I see as probably very likely and very disturbing, and I hope not, but if they're trying to play it up as a threat, they would certainly play to that view. And there are certain factions of the population that clearly have that, oh yeah, this is real, but it's real only because it's demons. And they truly believe that. And so that they would affiliate themselves with some of those individuals, I could see that being likely. And that's one of those other problem areas we need to really be careful of.
Thank you for touching on that. I appreciate that. I know it's a touchy subject, but it's important.
And I have not heard that there's any affiliation of any of those types. That has not come up in my stuff. But
okay, but it is interesting because George Knapp has alluded to that, and so did Harry Reid in some of the interviews that George Knapp did, for KLAS, and so that was quite interesting, and that's something that we should pay attention to for sure. But I do have some questions.
Go back and listen to the Harry Reid interview again, just to hear, because I'll have to go back and listen to that again just to
absolutely
be clear on what they're saying.
And before I've got a couple questions here I want to ask you, but we were talking, you were mentioning handler as compared to the other word that you were talking about. And so can you describe minder?
It's just well, I'll just tell you where the term minder came up. I don't mind saying this because I've said this in my lectures and things I've written and stuff for my lab research for a long time now, which is abductee Angela Thompson Smith, who wrote Diary of an Abduction, who is a MyLab case, had involvement with these kind of insider types. And so she coined that term minder to reference these insider types who befriend some abductees and other researchers and whatnot, but, so that they're minding the abductees or minding the field, And so I use that term because she said that, and I think it fits. It's just kind of a silly word, but it does fit, because when you were saying handler, traditionally, handlers meant someone more who you have a more intimate connection with, and that they're really managing your life and manipulating you and telling you what to say, what not to say, and where to do things, where not to do it, and leaking you specific documents and information. Now, are there people in this field that have been in a handler capacity with some individuals? Yeah, sure. And some people have even gotten in like relationships and significant other relationships with these people. That has happened. But in this case, I'm talking about something that's a lot more hands off. It's just like They're just kind of monitoring you, watching you, keeping tabs on you, show up every once in a while. It's more hands off and not a constant involvement at all. So that's why I use that term. And then I titled the lecture that because, as I said, it's what they're doing with the abductees as far as being minders. They're being minders of ufology. And in some cases are manipulating and causing it to go in different directions or away from other directions. I actually have some quotes I'm going to share in my lecture from some of these individuals that suggest that very thing. I mean, where they're actually quoted as saying, I'm derailing the train, and they're actually quoted as saying that. And so, meaning ufology, and so, here I'm saying, no, I'm not going to give them nefarious intentions necessarily, but there are some comments and here and there, that suggest certain kind of activities. And so I'm going to be sharing some of that in my lecture too. It's not a lot, it's just, a little, but it's a little enough to make everyone kind of go, well, wait a second, because the point of my lecture is for everyone to get it. This is a game. It's been played for a while. What's currently going on is a game. It has some other agendas. It's not necessarily all about the truth. And if there is some truth in there, it's classic disinformation. You got to give some truth, but watch out for the stuff that isn't. And watch out for the way this might persuade public opinion in a difficult area, to say the least.
Absolutely. And so I want to know, how would somebody know if they were an abductee or somebody that was poking around? How would somebody know if they actually had a handler in there or a minder in their life?
I mean, if you meet someone and you become their friend and you find out they have an intelligence background, ding. And again, it's like, okay, are you an abductee? Are you a public abductee? Are you someone who's had an investigated case? Do you have evidence for your abductions? Researcher Joe Montaldo calls it, you've probably talked to him. Joe's a great guy. And if not, you need to, because he's an amazing guy. But
no, I've been on his show before. He is.
Yeah, his. Good, very good, very good. Okay, so, and he gave it this phrase that they're the advanced abductees, which means, someone who's lived with it for a while, has had multiple experiences, that kind of thing. And so if you're an advanced abductee and you suddenly meet someone who's an insider type who shows an interest in your story or is providing you with information, congratulations, you have a minder. It's just like that. And some of it can be helpful because, again, how they're going to gain your confidence and your trust is to be helpful. And it may only be helpful information. Again, I'm not saying it's all nefarious, but it shows that there's a manipulation and a control. And again, what are they wanting to know about your case, and how much you involved, and have they stopped you or limited you in any way from accomplishing something you want to accomplish, or your being public in the field is affected by your friendship with them or something, and these things have come up. And in some cases, some abductees have just been so either frustrated by it or frightened by it, or like I said, frustrated or feeling limited by it or something, that they end up actually kind of pulling out of the field. Well, maybe that was, maybe that's by design. And then also, if these guys are gathering information, why? For what use, to what end are they gathering the information about you and your case? And is it really to help you, or are they being nice and helpful because they want your information? And again, it's not like, there's good guys and bad guys and white hats and black hats. There's a lot of guys with gray hats on,
Right.
And so And so, I'm friends with some of these guys right now myself. I've got current minder scenarios going on, multiple, and I just go, well, okay, I'll play along, because there's as my research associate Randy Kopang is always fond of saying, a quid pro quo, and so there's this information exchange. Are they getting stuff from you? Are they getting information, or are they learning about your case or other cases or whatever? But are you getting anything out of it? I mean, I felt like my lunch with Jim Semivan, I got a heck of a lot out of it, So, and I laughed, but I want anyone out there to know, anyone who talks to me about their alien abduction stuff or their MyLab stuff, unless I kind of know I have permission to use their name, I don't use their name. I'll say I have a case that has this or that, but I won't mention their name. And there are some people I've worked with in the past, and some well-known abductees whose names I can use, and they're people whose permission I have, or kind of loosely stated permission where I know they know I'm using their name. It's okay. But anyone out there who shares with me, particularly newer cases and MyLab cases, if they haven't gone public, unless they specifically state I can use their name, I'm not using their name. And I'm certainly not providing any case information to any of these guys, ever.
and that's good.
No
you
way.
can't be bought. Yeah. Amen to you.
No, I'm not providing any information.
Yeah.
And it's not about just being bought. It's just about my cases, particularly my MyLab cases and my alien abduction cases, and my clients. They have to trust me.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
I am going to do nothing to erode that trust. I need to be there as a support system to them, so they know they are not alone. There's someone they can go to who knows, understands, is willing to hear it, and might be able to help or give them direction. And
absolutely.
And I do not want anything to erode that. And so I want people to know I'm never sharing anything. I mean, I talk about my MyLab research in lectures and radio interviews, and that's all accessible to the public. And so if these guys are interested in my MyLab stuff, Jim Semivan at the end of our lunch meeting expressed great interest in that. Yeah, I'm going to give them some links to some lectures and stuff. It's like, here's my stuff. This is all out there. You can know all this, But he wasn't asking for any names or anything. I think he was just looking for an overall view and trying to get my take on it. I think he had a genuine personal interest. At least that's how it came across at the time. And, so I'm more than happy to tell him about my research. No problem, And, but at the same time, it's like, it's a tricky game when you talk to these guys, because you reflect back to something like Bill Moore's story.
Oh, Lord.
And it kind of ended his involvement in ufology,
Yes, it did. And
so,
I've got a couple questions I've got to ask you because we're getting ready to close the show. But
sure.
Amy
we're almost out of time.
Yeah, we are. Please talk about the deep state notes that you've shared with Grant Cameron. So we've got to do really 2-minute
I kind of just did. I mean,
okay.
That's what I'm going to give my whole lecture about. And sure, it gets into just, my lecture is not going to really cover my lunch with Semivan other than a couple of brief mentions about some of the highlights. But mostly he had already said stuff that came to be. He said by the end of the month, meaning it was February, I met with him on Super Bowl Sunday here in Sedona. And by the end of the month, they would come out with another piece of footage. Well, it came out on the 9th of this month. So they didn't quite make the 1st of March, but they made the 9th. And I kind of jokingly put it out there on the internet, thank you, Jim, for not making a liar out of me. Because it ended up, they did come out with another piece. Although everyone knew, they kept saying they were going to. But he specifically said before the end of the month, well, it was the 9th. And then he told me what the frustrations were with the New York Times. Well, they had frustrations with the New York Times and with the Washington Post. So I'm not necessarily surprised that it ended up being Chris Mellon, who's one of their members on the board, writing an op-ed piece for the Washington Post. I'm not necessarily surprised, given that it had been explained to me that there were these concerns and situations, and that these newspapers had big agendas they were working on, and not necessarily this story. Of course, the big agendas being the political agenda and the craziness is the White House, So they're dealing with that, and this is taking a back burner. And it's frustrating for everyone out there to say, well, what's coming next? Well, these guys have a deliberate plan to slowly release it, but also they're working with the constraints of the media, and if they're trying to persuade the media, they're trying to hand it to them in a way that they'll take it. And sometimes the media's pushed back and said, we don't want it right now, literally.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yes, you did. And there are other questions, and I will send them to you, and hopefully you can answer that my listeners have asked. And I'm sorry that we are running out of time, but at the end of the day, where do you truly feel intuitively that this is going with things that are taking place now? Do you think a disclosure is going to happen? Do you think that this is a good thing, or?
I'll say this. I said this to Jim Semivan that day, and I'm actually saying it towards the end of my lecture, which is, and I told Jim that day. I said, if you guys build a media awareness, and then this goes to from big media awareness and goes before Congress, I said this could easily get way out of your guys' control. And this becomes a bigger story, and the media will start looking for other sources beyond just you guys, and probably come to quite a few people in ufology. They already have over this. They interview those guys, then they interview us. So I think that'll increase. And I told him, I said, if this continues, that this could easily get out of your hands, and it's not disclosure because of you guys. It'll end up being disclosure in spite of you guys. Because these guys aren't doing disclosure. I kind of been saying that a lot, and maybe I just said that to you during the break. I don't think this is about disclosure, really. I think this is about all these other agendas. And if a tiny little midget of soft disclosure happens in there, it's to accomplish these other agendas. But this could end up rolling into a bigger disclosure. I'm a big believer. I also finished my presentation with "The truth will out," another Shakespeare quote. The truth will out. The truth has a way of becoming known. And if this gets out of their control, and I said this could become disclosure, again, not because of you, but in spite of you. And he leaned forward very seriously, looked in my face and said, I certainly hope you're right. And
that's brilliant. And I have to say that I love all of your comments, and there's so many more questions that I have to ask you. But for me, I want to say that there is a lot of important research that has taken place, and I think it's important for people that are looking to ufology for answers to, instead of looking to ufology for answers, you get out there and find research like Project Heshton.
Oh, yeah.
And there are, for some reason, the United States is full of, for some reason, which you identified earlier, Melinda, it's the fact that the government has been trying to discourage witnesses or trying to steer the narrative or discredit the subject for 50 plus years. And that's unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we've got this chaos and I think the game's at hand. And I really encourage people to look to other countries, Chile, Norway, Italy, all of these countries.
It's a round planet, and we're not alone.
Well, and there's good scientific research, and it's not so tinged with some of these. It's just not so dysfunctional, and I think that's important to understand. Absolutely. So, I appreciate everything you've done, and I want to get you back on here to talk about my labs and to talk about MK Ultra, because this is absolutely mind-blowing stuff. Where can people go to find out more and listen to your My Labs? All of your research.
There's a number of places. I guess start with maybe just looking up Melinda Leslie on YouTube. And I have a number of videos on there. I admit some I'm less proud of. There's nothing up there right now that I've written so badly that I would tell the people who put it up, take it down, you know. But I admit there's things I'm more proud of and things I'm less proud of. But for instance, I did for a really good overview of my MyLab research. I did a in-depth interview about a year ago with Carrie Cassidy of Project Camelot. And it's just her interviewing me. It's just an overview of my MyLab and my general take on it. That's a really good place for people to start if they're interested in that.
That's awesome. And I'm going to be posting links to everything. I want to just say thank you so much for being here. I also want to say that this is a really important time for all of us. We have the platform now. Yes. With what Tom DeLonge and Jim Semivan and Hal Puthoff and To the Stars Academy is doing, we have the platform to get good information out there. And so for all of us in ufology, we need to be respectful and have standards and also stand up to unprofessional behavior.
Well, on a positive note, on the upside is if these guys proceed and if they create a public awareness, people are going to be looking at everything in ufology. And so the researchers need to dot every I and cross every T and have their evidence in order and watch their P's and Q's because people are going to start paying more attention. I'm already getting it in an increase in, for instance, people coming on my UFO tours because of this. You know,
and that's fantastic.
We've got paying attention.
They are paying attention. We've got to close the show and stick around for another great night on UFO, or not UFO Classified, but KCOR. Thank you so much. I think I'm just distressed because Mario only gave me 30 bats. We've got to talk about that. But Melinda, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Make sure
thank you
I
for
will
having
post
me.
your links. Absolutely. Have a wonderful night. Stick around for Willie Miranda and Tina Marie. I will see you next Friday.
Listen very carefully.
This is Houston. Say again, please. Houston, we've had a problem.
This is UFO Classified, live every Friday night, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The truth is out there, just waiting to be discovered.
And now, if you will, accompany me on a journey to the future.
For more information on the host of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes, upcoming guests, as well as links to the past shows,
visit her website at UFOclassified.com.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network.